Hello and welcome to the IFS Tech Talk to introduce the IFS Packaging Guideline. We're just going to give it a minute here to let people get logged on. Again, welcome. We're just waiting for all the people to get logged on as it's coming onto Zoom. Okay, let's get started. Welcome. This is the Tech Talk introducing the IFS Packaging Guideline. The guideline was published today, so it's perfect timing. To introduce myself, I work with IFS as a senior communication manager. My professional experience in the packaging industry spans 40 years, and for the past 14 years, I've had my own packaging consulting business. I also help companies get IFS Pack Secure certified, and I work with Pac Global as a Pac Next consultant, and I help companies when they want to package their products as a coach and a trainer. So I'm just going to shut my video off here and get started into the meat of the presentation. Okay, our agenda for today is I'm going to give you a brief overview of Pac Global and IFS. I've already introduced myself, and we'll get into the packaging guideline. Pac Global is a not-for-profit advisor for the member-based global packaging network. Pac is over 70 years old now and have worked very hard over the years to connect, collaborate, learn, and innovate, and often celebrate together. The Pac family includes all of the stakeholders in the packaging value chain. For more information about Pac Global, please visit pac.global online. And I just want to give a big thanks out to Lindsay Cooper today, from Pac Global, who is hosting this session for us. So here's our introduction to international featured standards. We have global offices to assist companies wishing to certify to IFS worldwide. And we also have regional representatives in the areas where we do not have global offices. We are proud to say that we have over 30,000 assessments worldwide and continue to grow at a rapid pace. Our mission is delivering trusted products. And our vision is to provide trusted standards and services to cooperate within the supply chain to improve product integrity. We have a vast network. This is just an example of the companies that work with us on our working groups and contribute material to our resources. So you can see there's a lot of retailers that support IFS, retailers and brand owners. Our family of standards include IFS Food, Logistics, Broker, Household and Personal Care Products, HPC, Wholesale Cash and Carry, and of course, IFS Pack Secure for packaging. We also have 4 global markets programs that help company get started on the path to certification. IFS supports the stakeholders with technical support, recognized consultants, various tools, and training. Our tools include the IFS database, which includes internal audit software, checklists, the IFS Trend Risk Monitor. We have a monthly report for food risks worldwide, and the word cloud. And there's more information on our website about all of those. Pac Global and IFS partnered to bring the IFS Pack Secure standard to the market. It's the perfect partnership because IFS Pack Secure originally started the standard and then passed it over to IFS to manage it. And both organizations feel that it's important that these standards be developed by industry for industry. So that's our introduction. Let's get into the IFS Packaging Guideline. You will notice here that I have two logos on our site because the Packaging Guideline is actually designed and created for food companies to understand and communicate their needs around packaging with their suppliers. IFS Pack Secure is the standard, the IFS standard that covers all of the requirements to be certified for packaging. So let's get started with the purpose of food packaging. Really, the roles are to contain and protect. And this is really important. Protect can include physical protection or protecting the product from the outside atmosphere. This is the primary role. Depending on the product, it can also assist in preserving, especially around food, and extending shelf life. Package also informs, communicates, and presents the product to the consumer. Monitoring the condition through intelligent sensors has become more important as well. So we're seeing those in the market. And of course, packaging facilitates handling and delivery. But there are risks that come with packaging. And the primary one that we think about when it comes to food safety is chemical migration. Today, with all the sustainability efforts, we have to think about recycled content contamination, incorrect labeling, and meeting regulations and legislations that either pending or are already in place. So for food packaging, a food company's responsibility is to ensure that it is safe and suitable for the intended use. This includes the type of food and its interaction with the packaging, how it's processed, how it's stored, distribution, and how the consumer will prepare it. The food company and the packaging company have a shared responsibility. It is super important that the food company communicate the needs of the product to the packaging company. So under IFS Food, we list that we need to have the product specification clearly communicated, how it is being processed, the storage time and description. So that could include whether it's being refrigerated or frozen or shelf stable, the contact conditions, the surface volume ratio, and a description of all packaging. So it includes the primary packaging and the secondary. We must think about food contact, but also potential food contact. So a good example of this would be if you have a rigid yogurt container and you have a seal, a security seal, and a lid, we have to make sure that the lid is also suitable for the food contact. That information goes over to your packaging company, and the packaging manufacturer in turn has to provide the specification of the material and the product, the chemical composition, talk about any new substances and whether that changes the interaction, list any non-intentionally added substances, and we'll get into that a bit, and meet compliance. So they have to provide a compliance declaration. It is really important to have a robust and detailed supplier contract so that both parties understand their responsibilities and make sure they're both on the same page. The EU does have legislation in place under Regulation 1935-2004 and the GMP Regulation 2023-2006. If you are selling into the EU, it's important to understand your obligations under these regulations. And it's also important to think about national regulations, any specific measures that may be required, and the materials that are not regulated in specific measures. Under EU 1935-2004, it states no harmful components that alter taste, odor, or food composition none must be in the packaging. So this includes, though, active and intelligent materials, materials that are not regulated, your safety assessments, and labeling. And it applies to all food contact materials. The EU has come up with this symbol for safe food contact so that companies can apply this onto their packaging to give the consumer the information that they've done their due diligence. The legislation under the plastics regulation includes compositional requirements, migration limits, testing rules, the declaration of compliance, and supporting documents. And it states that DOCs are required for plastic and recycled plastic materials. So just back to the legislation for a minute, I just want to say that if you're not in the EU, these are just common sense food safety requirements. And there could be pending regulations coming, or you may have legislation in the region that you're selling into. So it's really important to explore that, understand it, and know when they're changing. Know if there's new regulations coming along or being introduced. But the concept's the same. In the IFS food standard, packaging is mentioned in these various requirements. So we have to have packaging specifications, list the parameters if they exist. We need to have packaging certificates of conformity. It includes packaging and labeling of the packaging material, and traceability. So your packaging materials should also be traceable, just like your ingredients. The guideline provides you 9 steps to follow when assessing packaging for safety and compliance. I'm going to just cover quickly those 9 steps, but you can get a lot more detail in the guideline that I won't get into because we just don't have time. So step 1 is to define the food specifications. As a packaging supplier, it is super important to understand exactly how food is being processed, how it's being packaged and preserved, the storage conditions, how the consumer is going to prepare the product, who the target group is, the destination, country, and region, specifically around regulations, and even temperature, because that can impact your food and your packaging. An example of that could be if you're selling into a hot country, they may not have the same type of requirements around their packaging, or you may have to have a different type of barrier property. If it's people are storing foods that are not refrigerated, for example. Includes the service to volume ratio. Again, we mentioned that before, and other packaging parts. So we need to be thinking about liners, components such as lids, and anything else that may be included in the food packaging. Step 2 is to identify the packaging materials and relevant legal framework. So this is something that that we need to really lock down on, especially around the different types of materials and inks and adhesives and coatings that are coming on the market. We need to understand if there's any laws around what we're putting into our packaging, whether the materials are actually suitable for the food that we're packaging, and also the specifications. Step 3 involves inspecting the packaging specifications and certificates of conformity. So it's the food company's responsibility to make sure that their packaging is suitable. So an inspection of the materials, the composition, the technical details, the tests that were conducted, the analysis performed, and the legal requirements. Reliable packaging companies have a lot of experience in dealing with the packaging that they sell. They have many customers and have seen what works and what doesn't work. And I can say that if you deal with a credible packaging supplier, they will be a font of information. So it's good to rely on them, but it's also good to make sure that you understand what you're purchasing for your foods and to understand the specifications and the parameters so that you can ensure that it doesn't change on you, that what you approved and what you're buying is what you're getting. Step 4 is to conduct a hazard analysis and risk assessment on your packaging. So are there any hazards that you need to be concerned about? Is there a fraud risk? You know, we do this with our ingredients, but we think of packaging as an ingredient, then we need to also consider whether there could be any risk with fraud. Would there be an interaction of materials? So would the material interact with the type of ink we've chosen? Or any migration? We have to consider the labeling that you're using and the adhesive on that labeling. Is there a possibility that it will migrate and contaminate the product? And also recycled content. More and more, we're going to see this recycled content coming into plastics. We need to make sure that they're safe for food contact. So step 5, the food manufacturer checks whether the packaging supplier can provide all the relevant necessary information. This is, I'm going to say, relatively new with more and more chemicals that are being assessed when we buy materials. So we have to make sure that the supplier is able to provide us the information that is required to make a good decision on whether the packaging is suitable. So we want to look at intentionally added substances. This is something that the packaging supplier may be adding themselves and what that looks like and what that means, but also non-intentionally added substances that are sometimes added during the processing stage. So declaring these and assessing these to make sure that they're safe for the foods that we're packaging has become very, very important. Step 6, the food manufacturer checks whether the requirements, limits, and analysis stated comply with the data given by the packaging supplier. So this includes the migration testing for transfer of harmful substances and the shelf life test. I'm not sure how many food companies are taking the time and making the effort to do these tests, but it's super important in order to ensure that we maintain our shelf life and that over time, there's no migration that can harm a consumer. This is just an outline of all of these steps. There's a lot more detail in the guide to provide the information that's required to assess and understand what these requirements are. So if you refer to the guide, you'll get a lot more information. Step 7 is to ensure traceability. Food contact packaging materials need to be traceable. That's important. But just in general, all materials need to be safe for the foods that they're packaging. Step 8, we want to conduct a regular supplier evaluation. So just like we do with ingredient suppliers, we need to consider the food safety of our packaging, the product quality, logistics, how it's being handled and delivered and stored, and we should have a certificate of compliance. Step 9, perform a self-control analysis based on own HACCP system. So it's a requirement to verify critical substances in food samples and high-risk products. So we need to make sure that what we think is happening is actually happening. The IFS Pack Secure standard covers all of these topics. So if you are dealing with suppliers who are IFS Pack Secure, you can be assured that all of these topics have been assessed, that they've gone to their suppliers and made sure the materials are safe for the intended use, and that they are traceable. IFS Pack Secure suppliers have to recertify every year. So it's important to do that because they have to keep their systems up. They have to make sure that they're continuously improving and reliable. And that is really the foundation of IFS standards. So if you're looking for reducing the number of supplier audits that you have to do, or even monitoring suppliers, look for suppliers that are certified to IFS Pack Secure, and you can be assured that they're staying on top of their responsibilities and obligations. So improving sustainability of packaging materials, this has been become a very, very important topic for all of us. So the European Green Deal covers states that they want to be climate neutral in Europe in 2050. We need to consider the challenges with bio-based polymers and whether that solves our sustainability obligations. And we need to look for sustainable solutions. And the top 3, of course, are reduction in packaging. That can include elimination. As an example, do you really need a bottle and a box? How can we reduce the amount of packaging that we're using? Also, reuse has become very, very, very topical. I think this is going to be, we're going to see more and more reuse systems come along. And of course, recycling. So what we do put in the market, we want to make sure that we can keep it in the circular economy and recycle the materials to their highest value. It's not good enough to recycle materials always into something like cement or park benches. We would really like to see the materials getting recycled back into packaging for as long as possible. The guideline also includes a declaration of compliance checklist for you. So this is just the top, 3 items on the checklist. The checklist is much more significant than this, but it is a very good guideline to make sure that you're getting the information that you need from your suppliers. The IFS Packaging Guideline is available now. It was published today. This is version 2. You can download the guide from the website, www.ifs-certification.com. It's available on the food standard page. It's also available on the IFS Pack Secure page, and you will find it in the news as well. It was just announced today. If you follow us on LinkedIn, currently the guideline is only in English, but the plan is to publish it in other languages. We'll be announcing that through LinkedIn. So that's the presentation for today. I'm going to open it up for questions if there are any, and I'll just put my video back on here if I can find it. Here we go. So I can't see the questions. Lindsay, do we have any? Or can I?
Nothing as of yet.
No Q&A? All right. Okay, well, with no questions, I guess that ends our show for today. You can always contact us at, what's going on here? No open questions, okay. Can you see that, Lindsay?
No, that's on your side.
Okay, all right. So contact us at packaging@ifs-certification.com, and our technical representative, Pius Gasser, and I will definitely direct you, if we can answer, to the appropriate person. And don't forget to visit our website at ifs-certification.com. And thank you very much.